What do you think of when you hear the term deer rifle? There was a time when the thought was a handy lever action like this. Then the thoughts went to the old red flannel shirts, campfires, deer camp, everyone telling stories, listening to Grandpa talk about the days past. Are those days past? We're going to discuss it. There was a period of time from the mid to late 1800s all the way into the mid 20th century where lever actions such as this were the dominant rifle in deer camps. Anything from a Winchester 1873 to a Winchester 92 to various Marlin lever actions, etc. Calibers from 4440 to 3030 to 348 Winchester to 4570. They filled deer camps throughout the United States. As bolt actions became more popular, as precision shooting became more popular, they slightly went to the wayside. Cowboy action shooting somewhat brought the popularity of a lever action back. Lever actions have seen a resurgence in the last several years. This one here, the Rossi R95. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Looks very similar to a Marlin 336. Contrary to popular belief, it is not a clone. There's some differences in the bolt and things like that. There's differences in the bolt. It's not a true clone, but it is very similar. There's a mark that I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Well, it's a hunting rifle, right? Let's break it down. Let's talk about the Marlin, the Rossi R95. Let's talk about my opinions of it, my experience with it in the field. It's a good rifle. It's currently the most affordable lever action out there. Lever actions have gotten very expensive. If you're looking at a lever action rifle for hunting big game, you're looking at somewhere between $700 and $1,000 just for the rifle. But it's a good investment. The actions are sound. And if you just want a classic old rifle, then by all means, pick one up. This is a Rossi R95. Rossi's have been around for a long time. A few years ago, Rossi made what they called the Rio Grande, which was a similar rifle to this. They've made a few improvements. It was similar to this. A cheaper, like a Beechwood stock. Some other things, slightly cheaper price. The finish wasn't quite as great, etc. They dropped that. I believe it was available in 3030 and 4570. They dropped it after a while. And they've recently, in the last few years, started the R95. Very similar again to the Marlin 336. A nice looking Brazilian hardwood stock. Not exactly sure what type of wood it is. Not a lot of figure, but not bad. A good looking stock with a dark walnut stain. Instead of standard checkering, it's kind of a stippling. I think it's a good looking rifle. It is without a doubt the smoothest lever action I've ever cycled. One finger. Let's try it. Pinky finger. For those of you that thought I was cheating, put the hammer all the way down. Pinky finger. It is without a doubt the smoothest lever action that I've ever cycled. Comes with sling swivels. That's always a plus. The fit and finish is pretty good. Kind of reminiscent of the older Marlins with the slightly larger forend, but I've got bigger hands that fits me well. It's not near as thick as the old Marlins. I'm kind of reminiscent of it. No barrel band, just clamped onto the magazine tube. Not a full length magazine tube. I believe it holds 5 versus 7 with the full length of the old Marlins. This one is 30-30. It's available in 45-70. They're now making it in 357, 44 Magnum, 360 Remington Buckhammer, and maybe some others, but I know those for sure. I kind of wish I'd have held out for a Buckhammer. There may be one of those in my future. It takes Marlin 336 scope bases, in case you're curious about that. Just a standard Marlin 336 Weaver style scope base will work just fine. I put medium rings on here. Let me go ahead and lower that hammer back. I put medium rings on here. This is just a cheap Bushnell Banner 2. It works really well. 3x9x40. I've hunted with this almost exclusively this year. I haven't had the fortune to take a deer with it, but I've carried it in the field quite a bit. I've shot it for accuracy. It likes 170 grain Remington cord locks. It prints them just around an inch to an inch and a quarter, depending on if I do my part. I think it looks really good with this military style old leather sling. It's fairly lightweight, a little heavier than the old Winchester 94s that we were used to, but this style rifle was always just a little bit heavier than the 94. That's fine. Yeah, this was always just a hair heavier than the old 94s. But just well balanced, fairly lightweight. One thing I do like, a lot of kids got their start with a 30-30. And there's nothing wrong with that. But with the hard butt plate, even a 30-30 on a small framed child, you're talking now that you don't have to have your hunter safety course to start hunting, you can hunt with an adult in most states. Kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old are starting to hunt. Back when I started, you had to be 12 so you could take your hunter safety course and all that. A larger kid. Becoming more popular among girls and whatnot too. You get a small frame kid with a hard butt plate, especially like my 94 with a steel Christen style, well, it's more of a shotgun style, but a steel butt plate. They can really wear out the shoulder of a child. A 30-30 is still a fairly mild recoiling cartridge, but this nice, soft recoil pad, let me see if I can show you that. This nice, soft recoil pad makes it just an absolute joy to shoot. Decent length of pull, real comfortable. Just comes up naturally. I like a 3x9x40 on a 30-30. I know that people will think that's overkill, but I like to be able, in heavy brush, I like to be able to crank it up and shoot through small windows in the brush. So I leave it on 3 power for quick shots and whatnot. And then when I've got one, I've got to shoot through brush and whatnot, I crank it up and I can pinpoint through small holes in brush and make it happen. And with a very accurate rifle like this, that's pretty easy to do. If you're familiar with a Marlin 336, this has a lot of similarities. It's got buckhorn style rear sight. I'm not much for the iron sights. I just can't see them anymore. I would consider having one of these and putting an aperture style sight on the top of the receiver. Um, there's several companies that make those that work really well, and I would certainly consider that. The finish, it's not a super high polished blue, but the finish is good. Um, it's just a solidly built rifle. Now let's talk about some things I don't like. I don't like this stupid lawyer-driven crossbolt safety. And I've heard so many, well, a lot of people got killed with those old lever actions because they didn't have a safety. Not true. It's because they didn't use gun safety. This does still have the half cock, which served as a safety on lever action rifles for well over 100 years. It works fine. It also has this function here, where if there's a little plunger, see if you can see that little plunger right there, that's depressed when the lever is all the way down. If that's not depressed, that doesn't go down. The gun won't go off. That's not depressed. Can't pull the trigger. Okay, that's one safety. Second safety, that half cock cannot pull the trigger. The crossbolt can be a plus if children are using it, etc., just as an added benefit. But for people that grew up shooting guns like this with just the half cock, many times you accidentally depress that. The buck of a lifetime comes in, you pull that hammer back, you've got him lined up in your sights, bang! Except it just goes click because of that crossbolt safety. And that's the big reason I don't like it. I don't want it to be accidentally depressed. And I'm just not going to carry a lever action with the hammer back and that safety on. It just goes against everything I've ever been taught. So I'm not going to do that. I don't like the crossbolt safety. I don't like the bead style front sight. I prefer a partridge style front sight or a half moon. I don't like the bead, but that's personal preference. I'm not a big fan of buckhorn style sights. I like more of a target style rear sight. But this is just, it's got its appeal, to the Western guys and things like that. In 44 Magnum or 357, it'd probably be really good, not just for close range hunting, but for cowboy action shooting and things like that. 4570 certainly be a giant killer. But this one's the 30-30. 20-inch barrel. Just a standard carbine. Just a good, solid feeling rifle. Like I said, just nice, nice looking hardwood. The stippling feels really good in your hand. A low gloss finish. A really good trigger. A really good trigger. I haven't put a scale on it, but I'm going to guess around 3.5 pounds. Not bad for a hunting rifle. Not bad at all, especially if you're going to have a child shoot or something like that. You don't want a super light trigger. Easily scopable, like you can see. Accurate, like I said. Plain old Remington Corelocks, 170 grain round nose. Right around between an inch and an inch and a half, depending on how hot the barrel got and how tired I was at the time. Easy put a sling on it. Comes with sling swivels. Fairly lightweight. The most economical lever action available right now. Mossberg quit making theirs a while back, and that was the least expensive option. Now it's this Rossi. People are going to say, well, it's a Rossi. Rossis are junk. Rossi's have been around for a long time, and Rossi's are not junk. Rossi's do have a reputation of being an economical firearm. Rossi's are not junk. I had a Rossi R92 in 357. I had really good luck with that. I've owned Rossi handguns. Their parent company, Taurus. I've owned several things by Taurus. Rossi's are not junk. There is a group of people, of shooters here in the United States that for some reason think if it wasn't built here, it's garbage. Well, here's the problem. Very few of them are built here anymore. Brownings are made in Japan, have been for a long time. Weatherby's, made in Japan. A lot of them. Vanguards, things like a lot of it's made in Japan. Some have been made in the United States, but they've been foreign sourced too. Remingtons are made here to the best of my knowledge, but they have imported guns from other countries. I have a Remington 798 that was made in Serbia. And it's an excellent rifle, by the way. One of the favorite hunting rifles I've ever owned. I understand the sentiment. I have no problem with wanting to buy stuff in America, but just because it was made somewhere else doesn't make it junk. These are made in Brazil. The smoothest lever action I've ever had. If you just have to buy American, fine. Get a Henry, get a Marlin. You're going to be happy with them. They're great guns. But don't diss a rifle just because it wasn't made here. Rossi's got a reputation for being a good firearm throughout the world. For some reason, Americans just think that they're garbage, and they're not. They're excellent firearms. They have a niche. They're price point firearms for the most part. They don't make long range bolt actions, high quality stuff like that. They don't make things like that. You want a lever action that you can afford? This is about it, folks. For a budget-minded hunter, here's something else to think about. These beautiful new Marlins and Henrys with the black walnut stocks and the fancy blue and all that. The first time you get a scratch on it, you're going to cry all the way back to the truck. This thing with the hardwood, the low gloss finish and whatnot, you're going to carry it through briars and such. Put some scratches on it, beat it up, and not worry about it. I want a rifle I'm not worried about to take out in the woods. I am confident enough in this rifle that this was my backup on a recent elk hunt. Now I didn't have to use it. Thank goodness. My 30-06 held up just fine. I took my elk with my 30-06, but this was my backup. Somebody say, why would you take a 30-30 elk hunting? Easy. This was my next most powerful gun. I've got a 30-06, I've got a couple 30-30s, and I've got ARs, SKSs, things like that. As far as center fires, this was the gun that was capable of killing an elk. I didn't have to use it, but it was my backup. And had I had to use it other than my range restrictions, I'd have been plenty confident. We've got an antlerless season going on right now. I'm going to try to go out and take a doe with it. This has been a great gun. I didn't get to do a lot of whitetail hunting this year because of my elk hunt. Took up a lot of that time. But I'm okay with that. I've got a freezer full of elk meat. I've shot it. It's accurate. It's smooth. It's just a classic lever action, folks. You want a lever action rifle that's as Western as cowboy boots, and you're not a brand snob. Look at the Rossi R95. This is a great gun at a pretty good price. Accurate. If you're familiar with Marlins, you'll be very familiar with this. It is very similar. It is not a clone, but it is very similar. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Like and subscribe if you would. Put some feedback down below if you've got any experience with this rifle. And we'll see you next time.